In 1857, the British Empire laid the cornerstone of a system that governed the minds of millions, the result of a 70-year colonial engineering project. That year saw the founding of the first 3 modern universities in the subcontinent: Calcutta, Bombay, and Madras. Look at the University of Bombay's Rajabai Clock Tower. The British were stamping their authority in stone and mortar, imposing a distinctly Western aesthetic. This ambition stretched across the entire territory. Structures like the sprawling Senate House at the University of Madras were built to project massive bureaucratic scale. These universities marked the final victory in a decades-long policy war. The British strategy had shifted away from the Orientalist preservation of Indian cultures and moved toward an Anglicist model designed by administrators like William Jones, Macaulay, and Wood. The structure of modern Indian education follows the exact administrative logic laid out in those colonial directives, designed to consolidate British control over the population. We have to trace this back to 1784, in Calcutta, with the establishment of the Asiatic Society of Bengal. The architects of this early phase were Governor-General Warren Hastings and the Society's president, William Jones. Their strategy was analytical. To successfully govern millions of alien subjects, they determined the colonial state first had to map the local cultural and legal baseline. They executed this through the mass translation of ancient legal and sacred texts. By converting these materials into English, they were attempting to decode the traditional knowledge base of the subcontinent. William Jones personally translated seminal works like the Abhigyana Shakuntalam and the Manusmriti. His goal was to codify local customs into a legal reference for British judges to use in court. Around the same time, Charles Wilkins translated the Bhagavad Gita, turning spiritual philosophy into accessible administrative data. In 1800, Lord Wellesley attempted to institutionalize this training by founding Fort William College, designed to teach incoming British civil servants local languages and traditions. But exposing young officials to Indian culture carried a risk. The British feared their administrators were going native. The college was shut down, and the colonial government recognized they needed a different approach. By 1835, that new approach arrived in the form of Thomas Macaulay's Minute on Education. Macaulay discarded the strategy of cultural preservation. He declared traditional Indian education structurally and intellectually inferior to European learning. His mandate was total replacement. The state would now fund only the instruction of Western sciences, physics, chemistry, and mathematics, taught exclusively in the English language. To reach a massive population, Macaulay designed the downward filtration theory. The government concentrated resources on a small, wealthy Indian upper class. By teaching them English, they created localized interpreters, expecting this Western education to drip down to the masses below. Concurrently, Western instruction was already sparking new intellectual currents at Calcutta's Hindu College. Educators like Henry de Rosio were initiating the Young Bengal movement, introducing students to the concepts of the French Revolution. The colonial administrators realized a slow trickle-down effect was too inefficient and left too much room for radical thought. To mass-produce the thousands of clerks required to run the empire, they needed a rigid institutional framework. Macaulay's policy ensured that the English language functioned as a structural mechanism of class division, securing administrative compliance from those permitted to learn it. The man who built that rigid framework was Governor-General Lord Dalhousie, who arrived in India in 1848. Dalhousie operated on 2 parallel tracks. The first was aggressive physical conquest, executed through a legal mechanism called the Doctrine of Lapse. Under this doctrine, if the ruler of an Indian state died without a biological male heir, the state was automatically annexed by the British Empire. Any adopted heirs were legally invalidated immediately. The territorial collapse was rapid. Satara was absorbed in 1848, followed by Jaitpur and Nagpur by 1854. This policy seized the kingdom of Jhansi in 1853. The British rejected the Rani of Jhansi's adopted son, stripping away their physical sovereignty. But while Dalhousie was dismantling traditional kingdoms on the map, he was building a massive intellectual empire in their place. The intellectual counterpart to the Doctrine of Lapse was Wood's Despatch of 1854, a document so comprehensive it is frequently cited as the Magna Carta of Indian education. Wood's Despatch abandoned Macaulay's slow filtration theory for aggressive mass institutionalization. The plan established departments of public instruction across 5 major provinces. To enforce standardized curricula, they created official roles like the Director of Education and numerous school inspectors. The final output of this directive was the founding of those 3 universities in Calcutta, Bombay, and Madras in 1857. Dalhousie physically erased independent Indian states and simultaneously built the schools required to train those displaced populations to work for the British state. The bureaucratic chassis constructed by Wood and Dalhousie proved durable. It became the unshakable foundation for all subsequent educational expansions in the country. By 1917, the original Calcutta University was straining under a massive administrative burden, prompting the government to appoint the Sadler Commission. With input from Indian members like Ashutosh Mukherjee, the commission mandated a vast expansion, calling for the creation of 7 new universities and the introduction of specialized diploma courses. This era spawned new campuses across the region, heavily visualized by the sprawling red brick of Curzon Hall at the newly established University of Dhaka. Fast forward to post-independence India. Between 1964 and 1968, the new government convened the Kothari Commission to restructure national education. Despite independence, the commission effectively codified the century-old colonial progression into a strict formula. It formalized 10 years of primary and secondary schooling, followed by 2 years of higher secondary and 3 years for university graduation. The 10+2+3 framework remains the primary gatekeeper for Indian students, a system built to convert a diverse population into a standardized administrative workforce.